Are reflecting on the fact that a new government is taking shape in London and Westminster, and Sir Keir Starmer, as the new Prime Minister, has got a lot in his in tray, hasn't he?
A lot, isn't it, in his in tray domestically. So it's, meeting in the Metro Mayors. We saw in the last half hour, didn't we, Andy Burnham going in. We're going to be talking to him on the programme when he's come out of that meeting to find out what's being talked about. And then Sir Keir Starmer is going off to the US. Here's some more mayors arriving. So it's the mayoral meeting. This was just in the last kind of half hour or so. And then today it's the first time all the MPs are going to be going into the House of Commons as well. So it's all go in Westminster this morning.
This mayoral meeting is going to be interesting, isn't it? Because for a long time they've been calling for extra powers. They believe that if more power is devolved from Westminster out around the country to people like them, then it's going to allow decision-making to be quicker and faster, especially things like building and infrastructure. But what will that mean in reality? The Prime Minister's pledged to loosen Whitehall's tight grip over the big cities and regions, starting with this meeting in Downing Street, which is now getting underway. But Sir Keir Starmer also having to address uncomfortable questions about local government finance, about housing and transport. And we can speak now live on Breakfast to the Minister for Levelling Up, Housing and Communities, Jim McMahon. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. I know it's a busy time for all of you as you get used to your new positions and new roles and all these meetings going on. We'll talk about the levelling up thing in a moment. Can I just ask you about Ukraine, though, because we're getting details in all the time of these terrible attacks yesterday. 41 people killed in a number of missile strikes, including a number of children at that hospital in Kyiv. I know the new Prime Minister has condemned it and described these attacks as atrocious, but what will he be urging other NATO leaders actually do when he meets them later today in Washington? Well,
the most recent attacks are a reminder that we can't wane on our support for Ukraine. And, you know, I think it was a statement of intent that the new Defence Secretary went out in the first 48 hours to Ukraine to recommit Britain's support for their efforts in defending their sovereignty and their democracy. So, you know, what we're seeing is heartbreaking, and particularly when you see the impact on children. Of course, you think immediately to your own children, think there, but for the greater God. So let's not waver on our support. We've absolutely recommitted to that, and I know that it will be high on the agenda when the Prime Minister visits NATO.
And is this a reason for the Prime Minister to be thinking about spending more on defence here in the UK?
Well, it's also about making sure that Britain has already committed to is actually supplied. We made commitments back in April that haven't fully been met with yet. And again, the Defence Secretary, when he was out there, was very clear that within the first 100 days of the new government, we'll make sure that those are supplied as promised.
What about bringing Ukraine into NATO?
Well, we'll leave that for the negotiations and the discussions that are taking place later on. But for now, let's think about the victims. Let's not forget why our support for Ukraine is so important. And also think about the Ukrainians who are here in the UK, many in my own community, who came over to live here to live in a safe place, but of course have family members still in Ukraine who they'll be absolutely fearful for.
Indeed. So this morning, the Prime Minister, before he heads to Washington for NATO, he's called in those metro mayors from across England, those elected mayors, and he's talking to them about devolution of power from Westminster out around the country. What kind of powers is he looking to share and spread out?
Well, we're really excited now because in many areas across the country they will have a Labour council, they will have a Labour mayor, and now they've got a Labour government who can work hand in hand across England to really deliver for our communities and deliver on that promise. And so the meeting that's taking place in Downing Street today is a statement of intent. In the first week, our Metro mayors are at the table with a Labour government working together in partnership in a relationship of equals. And I think that in itself is really important as a statement of intent. The next part now is, well, how do we make impact? And that's really recognising that we can't command and control for Whitehall and think that we can achieve change in every community from a central power base. We've got to devolve out and we've got to learn to let go. And we've got to really trust our Metro mayors who have proven with their councils time and time again that even in very difficult periods over the last 14 years, in fact, they've been able to make change happen. And so we're looking at transport, we're looking at housing, we're looking at the skills agenda and much more, where we know that, you know, devolving that down to our Metro mayors and our councils, we can achieve far more quicker.
Can you give us a couple of examples then of powers you're prepared to let go of and give to the mayors instead?
Well, it's happening now. If you look at Greater Manchester, Mayor Burnham is getting on with the skills agenda, really bringing on par now technical, vocational education with university education. And as a 16-year-old apprentice, when I left school, I can tell you what a difference that made to my life and what a difference it makes to millions of lives in starting people off with a good career and a good job that will sustain them for their lives. And so we're seeing that take place now. We can do far more on skills to align it to the local jobs market and to align it to local industrial strategies. And of course, then we talk about building new homes, we talk about business space as well, we talk about transport infrastructure, and really kind of piecing all that together to a local plan that really talks to itself and makes sense. And I think what we're seeing with the government previously is just how kind of fragmented it was. You'd be talking to so many different departments in a scattered way. It'd be a central bidding process, and so you'd be bidding in all the time for different pots of money. And I think almost maybe the biggest thing that we will do is having a single settlement, a single pot of money that trusts our metro mayors to get on and to do the job that they've been elected to do.
Pots of money. How much money? Because I know a lot of those mayors in that meeting will be saying to Keir Starmer, look, it's great to have the powers, but you need to boost the money we receive, boost spending into local government. Are you prepared to match the words with cash?
So there's two issues there. One is the foundation of local government, which is how councils are funded and how we deal with the demand in social care and children's services, and also temporary accommodation. And we're currently reviewing that at the moment. We can't preempt what that might mean, but I can say it's absolutely high on our agenda. But secondly, then capital spending, and that's about housing, and it's about transport, and it's about other type of investment to make sure that that is given to our mayors to invest in the right way in their local communities, because of course they will always know their communities far more. And what we want to see with our mayors and our councils is working together with the local community where there's more co-production in delivering the future of their places.
We're going to be speaking to Andy Burnham when he comes out of that meeting, apparently, so we'll find out whether he's going to get the powers and he's satisfied he's going to get the cash, and the other mayors are too. Interesting that you're still using the term levelling up, because there was some talk, I know, before the election that Labour might get rid of that phrase, but it's staying, is it?
Well, no, it was firmly tipexed out of the department yesterday, so we're now the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. And why that's important for me is, well, one, levelling up was only ever a slogan. It wasn't a thing that people felt in their communities, but local government wasn't included, and people do feel local government in their communities. People know what the council does, people know how important those services are, and people also know that it needs far more focus and attention going forward. So it is a reshaping of the department, it is a refocus, but frankly, it's also just grown-up politics.
So that's it. Levelling up as a phrase is not something that you'll be using anymore as a government?
As a campaign slogan, it was never more than that. This is about delivery on the ground now, and I do believe, frankly, that the British public have had enough of politicians making promises that they don't follow through and don't make a material difference in the places where they live. What we're absolutely committed to do is to make sure that people feel the impact of Labour government in their communities, where people know that the place where they live is well cared for, where the housing that people need are being built, where the schools that young people go to be educated in are of good quality with enough teachers to serve the local community, and that the health service functions properly.
Sure.
And people will see the difference of a Labour government in the way that they did when we were in government last time.
I'm sure I saw when Angela Rayner was appointed the other day that Levelling Up Secretary was one of her titles when it was released by Downing Street.
Yeah, well, the first week we're going to obviously kind of be making those changes. So
okay.
We had a meeting in the department yesterday, really enthusiastic with the new team, with myself and Matthew Pennycook and Angela Rayner. The staff were enthusiastic as well, and we're just really excited to get going.
Can I just ask you about Thames Water, the UK's biggest, largest water company? Real concerns about their finances, about their infrastructure. We've got their financial figures out this morning. How worried are you about Thames Water as a government?
Well, we recognise that over the last 14 years, frankly, the water industry hasn't been regulated anywhere near as firmly as it should have been, and we haven't seen the investment to deal with the sewage scandal and the leaks that frankly are denying bill payers the service that they deserve. So the water industry will have to reform, the regulation around it will have to be looked at, and we have to see more investment going forward. The days of putting shareholder interest above the national interest, frankly, can't carry on. And so we do need to look at that, and Thames really do need to look at their own house and get it in order.
The Guardian reporting this morning that the Prime Minister has been warned that Thames Water poses a critical risk to the UK. I mean, if it came to it, would you be prepared to nationalise it?
Well, there is no programme of nationalisation for the water industry. Partly, by the way, why on earth should bill payers pay twice? They've already paid for 14 years through their bills for a water service that in many parts of the country they just haven't been getting. The idea on top of that, we then take taxpayers' money to bail it out, frankly, is for the birds, it's not going to happen. To be clear though, there is no provision in law for a water company to stop providing water. Even if Thames didn't exist tomorrow, people in the Thames area will still get a water supply and still get their sewage treated through a different way. So we need to be very clear there is always a contingency in place.
Jim McMahon, thank you for joining us.